Hello and welcome to this live stream. Thank you so much for coming along. And thank you to Oligarch, who says, I can't get enough of Nick Dixon content and analysis. Thank God Headliners got cancelled. Let's grow the channel and support real patriots. Keep up the good work. Absolutely, sir. I'm so glad my main income got ended as well. No, but I am glad because it's let me do all the stuff I wanted to do. Thank you so much for coming along. So this is kind of an experiment. Firstly, an experiment in can I speak in an unself-conscious way with always worried my neighbors can hear all the terrible stuff I'm saying. But and I'm not wearing my headphones, which gives me a kind of normally a sense of security, but I don't really need them. So this is a kind of new experiment. I'm doing live streams, as you've noted. I'm doing the ones with, for example, Simon Roberts the other night, the Dominic Cummings one. That was good. It was 4 hours, 38 minutes. And someone watched it twice. Absolute hardcore fans. Ask yourself, if you're not watching a 4 hour, 38-minute Nick Dixon stream twice, are you really a fan? So people have loved that incredibly. So thank you so much for not incredible that they've loved it, but incredible they've watched it twice, 4 hours, 38 minutes. Anyway, we're doing the live streams where we respond to videos like Dominic Cummings talking or whatever, and they're quite good. But this is a new thing where I thought I'd respond instead to, well, links and tweets, videos, but short videos and articles and things, much more like a Lotus Eaters segment, except without the nice cameras and so on, and on me Todd, of course. And or you could see it as a very low budget Ben Shapiro show without the dodgy opinions and just based hard-hitting opinions, but again with no budget, because I sometimes do these 10-minute videos and the little solo videos, but they actually take about 3 hours anyway with all the post-production fiddling about that I'm not very good at. So I thought, well, why not just do it like this and just go straight into the old camera. And I'm tempted to turn on my fan. Give me 1 sec. Extremely low budget. We got an Argos fan. So it's an Argos fan. It's me. Although I have got the Rogan mic now, so things are moving up. And I'm going to get a much better camera. But we've got to put the blind up first. And the blind people are taking weeks. Not blind people. I haven't got blind people coming to work on my house, but the people to do the blinds. And I've decided to just do the whole house at once, even though this is just one small blind. So the guy who was going to come out said his van wasn't big enough. It's like, and I've given them like half the money. Can you, anyway, it's not about that. It's not about that. It's about politics. So yeah, I thought I'd just do a little sort of, someone saying stream starts at 4:37. This is an ongoing joke about people saying that there's too much banter at the start of some of my podcasts. And I've certainly been doing some banter here, but that's just for people to filter in. And Argos, no sponsorship. No, indeed. It's that's just my own opinion on the product. So what I thought we'd do is do a sort of single topic and all my thoughts around it. And it's quite a big topic, actually, because it's of course, the escalating migrant situation. Then the fact that the government's spying on us using software that's supposed to be for, can you say the word beginning with T on YouTube? That means people who don't really like us and want to harm us and do it in surreptitious ways involving, can you say weapons? Anyway, you'll see what I mean. You can probably say the T word, can't you? I don't know what you can say on YouTube these days. Probably none of the words we're going to say today. But basically, we've got the escalating situation, which you've all seen. But then we've also got the government now spying on us using this special software and a special elite team, so-called elite, which is incredible. And then you've got the attempts by councillors to actually rebel against this. And one of them is a reform councillor, so you go, yeah, that's maybe expected. But you've also got local police commissioners trying to rebel against these migrant hotels, so that's quite interesting. And then they've even gone after Robert Jenrick. The Home Office tried to even silence Robert Jenrick. So I thought we'd have a look at all that, plus some fun tweets at the end. Hugh says, Lewis Schaefer has a curtain he found in the park as a backdrop. I can well believe it. I've missed Lewis. So maybe we'll press on and give this new format a crack. And I just thought I'd bring up this video, which you'll have probably seen, but it shows these migrants coming into the Britannia Hotel. And they look a certain way, don't they? I'll just make myself smaller and we'll try and play this. I don't think we need sound. So here they're coming in. And if you look at them, you'll have seen this. They've all got this weird pack with them. What's in the pack? Their instructions. It's like the Bourne Identity. They all have like little instructions on their missions. And they're all quite built, aren't they? And they all look very similar. And it's very, very weird. I'm not saying that our leaders are bringing in an invading army, but if you were going to do it, it would look an awful lot like this, wouldn't it? And that's the Britannica Hotel. And lots of people have said, well, are people allowed to protest there now? There was this confusion, and the Met Police said, no, it's just a specific order for a few people who are causing trouble that can't come back for 28 days, but people are still free to protest. But that's their claim. Anyway, so that's the Britannica Hotel, where we've seen so much of this going on. Very, very weird, very questionable. So that's just some background. And of course, you'll have seen the story, which now there will be slight tech issues with me doing it all on my own, because I actually have to sort of appear massive for a second before I can share the next one, which is a kind of flaw of this particular software, I guess. Unless you like seeing me massive, then it's a good thing. So we all saw this probably. 2 Afghan asylum seekers have been charged over the alleged rape of a 12-year-old girl in quiet Warwickshire town. And can we even say that word on YouTube? So this was particularly sick because one of them also had been charged with aiding and abetting, R word, as well as strangulation and kidnap of the girl. I mean, it's just beyond belief. I put out a very angry tweet about this. I've put out several. It's just too much. What can you really say about that? What can I add that makes that as bad as it could possibly be? So there's nothing else to really say to that. But this kind of thing goes on all the time. I mean, one thing I said on Twitter actually was either our elites didn't realize this was going to happen and just thought all peoples and cultures were the same, in which case they're the biggest morons, and I use a different word, biggest morons of all time and shouldn't be running anything, or they knew it was going to happen, in which case they're sort of people smuggling criminals and completely to blame for this, which is even worse. So there you go. Absolutely disgusting. And there was another example, which I'll attempt to share now, which, again, very similar. You may have seen my friend Callum, who keeps he keeps posting how many days it is since a migrant grape, they used to say on Twitter. So let's say that. Well, it's back to 0 days because migrant tried to kidnap girl 10 while staying in taxpayer-funded hotel. And this was in Manchester, in the 3-star hotel in Wimslow, Manchester. So a migrant has been charged with trying to kidnap a 10-year-old girl. The Crown Prosecution Service has confirmed. This was a guy from Sudan, was living in a £100 a night 3-star hotel. And a 30-year-old man he allegedly tried to take the young girl while she was with her father in Stockport. I mean, what can you say to that? So this kind of thing is happening every day now. Every day. Oh, thank you so much, Jamie, for the super chat. I'll read them at the end. So shocking stuff. You probably all know this. I'm just giving a bit of background before I get into the main thing, which is this article in the Telegraph, which I'll bring up for you all now. Okay, you need a producer to do this, don't you? You need well, it used to be John at Lotus, isn't it? It's other people, but you need your producers. But for now, a low budget. So Labour targets anti-migrant protesters with terrorist tracking software. Did you see this piece? Unbelievable. So did someone say, has the elite forces entered the chat? That's a great question. Actually, it's a great question. Yeah, they're almost certainly monitoring this. Like, one of the things he did was talk about the anti-migrant tracking software. And using our anti-migrant tracking software, we tracked that. And we caught him out talking about the article about us. I mean, it is ridiculous, isn't it? The meta levels of that, inception levels of just anarcho-tyranny. Take a drink when I say anarcho-tyranny. I do say it a lot. It's well known. But come on. You've got... This is the ultimate... This is the apotheosis of anarcho-tyranny, is it not? You've got software that's supposed to be for terrorists, right, being used against us. Does it get any more anarcho-tyranny than that? For those of you that don't know the term, it just means that criminals are allowed to run amok while the law-abiding are punished. Coined by Samuel Francis in 1993. It was quite mild at the time when he coined it. It's got so much worse. And this is, as I say, the apotheosis, the ultimate example of anarcho-tyranny. Is Keir Starmer sub to you yet? Yeah, he's on board. He's watching everything. So a Whitehall disinformation unit used tools created to hunt for jihadists to find critics of asylum hotels, the Telegraph can reveal. The secretive team was this week revealed to have flagged concerning narratives, guys, I thought concerning narratives were like Disney Star Wars movies. Anyway, concerning narratives about migrants to tech platforms during the Southport riots. The disclosure prompted the Trump administration and US congressmen to warn of a free speech crackdown in Britain. The Telegraph can now reveal that some of the tools used by the National Security and Online Information Team, NSOIT, not a very good, not quite an acronym, is it, were originally developed to hunt terrorists. So in 2017, missioners commissioned faculty an AI firm to help search for recruitment videos posted by ISIL. At the time, the use of the technology was strictly limited to stopping British social media users from encountering grisly beheading videos and calls to commit acts of terrorism. The firm developed tools that could automatically spot Islamic, we're saying every bad word in this stream, Islamic State content spreading online. I've got to mute some of these words. So it could be flagged to tech companies by the government. Anyway, you get the gist. It's now being used against us, and it's a direct descendant of the tool used by the UK government to hunt for terrorists in 2017. We're going to need some euphemistic words, guys. We're going to carry on these. But so it's the ultimate anarcho-tyranny. It's being used against us now because it's so much easier than tackling the actual problem. And Sam Ashworth Hayes had a very good tweet thread on this, which I'll bring up now. I hate the way it has to, and there must be a better way of doing this. Let's have a look at this. So Sam was talking about this. He had his own tweet here saying local police forces haven't quite twigged that attempting to conceal information is now doing quite a lot to fuel tensions, and in particular the impression that the state is not on the side of its people. So I'm sure you saw in Warwickshire, it was covered up. They tried to cover it up, and of course it didn't work at all. It completely backfired. They haven't learned anything from Southport. Completely insane idea, but obviously it makes people think that they're not on our side. I mean, what could give you that impression? And then Sam has added to that, and with this tweet thread, which I thought was worth going into. So he said, it's worth spelling out why they act like this. Britain's establishment is aware that the migration policies it imposed have been an economic and social disaster. It also knows that it would be completely delegitimizing to admit this. And one thing I asked is, when does it become more delegitimizing to actually fail to deal with it? Right, because they're not exactly seen as particularly legitimate right now. But Sam's pointing out that if they just said, yeah, we've messed this up, it would be even worse. So the worry about coming clean is twofold. First, they can't see a way to fix the mess, and people would demand that changes were undone. Admitting they've inflicted an irreversible negative doesn't seem like a recipe for harmony. Second, they wouldn't be calling the shots anymore. That's a good point. The defenestration of the Conservative government last year would look like a tremor next to the earthquake an actual reckoning with the scale of this failure would unleash. The politicians responsible would never hold power again. Their parties would be erased at the polls. Now, I think their parties are going to be erased at the polls anyway, and they're going to be obliterated by reform, even if reform actually don't do anything and are kind of rubbish. The very fact that if reform win, that shows, right, we no longer think the mainstream parties and therefore the kind of prevailing ruling elite are legitimate. So I think that's going to happen anyway, but I see Sam's point. He goes on, so instead we have increasingly desperate attempts to manage the concerning narratives that have emerged as a result of this dissatisfaction, and two-tier policing to manage the occasional displays of public unease. Protests or misbehavior among minority groups that can be minimized by turning a blind eye in kid club treatment. The same behavior among the majority would rapidly spiral out of the ability of Britain's limited police forces to control. Although Peter Hitchens was doubting that the other day, he was saying, well, we've got more police than ever. Actually, we surely could control these things. But I know that certainly the conventional narrative is the police don't have the resources to tackle simultaneous protests across the country. And that is probably true. I mean, they can't tackle anything as it is. So the result is an attempt to construct an illusory state of affairs where the general public agrees with the state, to smear those who complain as far right, to limit the visibility of dissent in an attempt to avoid common knowledge about the population that views are shared among the population. Yes, classic Soviet tactics. You probably know the phrase preference cascade, which is when, I'm just adjusting my cushions here. That's what I'm doing. Got a bad back. I've just been in the gym and, I'm over 40. So you've probably seen the preference cascades and know about that. That's where you've got the Soviet Union. No one's admitting to each other that this whole thing is bollocks. I'm I'm simplifying it into northern, and then, but finally people start speaking to each other and go, oh, you think this is bollocks as well. And we've certainly had that in this country, but he's saying the government are trying to control such things. But of course, it's basically failed, hasn't it? But anyway, in service of this goal, the state cracks down on those who do protest, or speak to intimidate others by example. It imposes laws on speech and digital communication. It refuses to track economic, social, and criminal outcomes. It refuses to publish data when it has it. And we've seen Rupert Lowe trying to get some of this data published. It also pushes tediously transparent narratives about historical wrongs and contributions and the nature of life in modern Britain in an attempt to forge a national myth for the population to buy into. Britain began when the Windrush arrived to build our NHS, etc. The goal of the establishment is survival. The goal of the state is managing the backlash until the population is sufficiently demoralized or altered to accept UKification. That's a pretty good point, isn't it? They just want to keep doing this until we're too demoralized or we're filled with the people that hate us anyway, which is the UKification. Interesting. I have some points about that, but let's press on. This is why there are state spy units, which I just alluded to, tied to the actual intelligence services, monitoring your posts about migrant hotels and demanding social media censorship. This is why there's a unit devoted to domestic propaganda to be wheeled out in the wake of the latest terror attack. Absolutely. The reason it's getting increasingly unsubtle is that techniques which previously worked associate dissent with disreputable far-right activities, put moral pressure on people with narratives of current and past wrongs not to object, lie about the scale of the issues, are failing. In turn, the population has picked up on what's going on. This is basically the preference cascades I was talking about, including the police accompanying of counter-protesters to events to make sure there's an alternative to focus on. We saw that the other day. But again, it's not working. It's extremely notable that in Epping, the usual don't look back in anger front lash failed to manifest. Over 1,000 protesters turned up, kept turning up, and then protests started to spread. There are enough communities experiencing the latest wave of migration firsthand that charming news stories about cricket and tea as engines of integration are being drowned out by what people can see happening to their homes. And understandably, they want the government to stop. This is a problem because it really doesn't intend to. It's too costly to the elite consensus. The alternatives it's willing to offer are put migrants in houses on your street or wave them through for instant approval to live among you. Neither are likely to be popular. We've seen Yvette Cooper has talked about this and said, oh, we're going to put them through more efficiently. It's like, that's not really the issue, is it? We weren't really complaining that asylum applications weren't processed quickly enough. We want to kind of send them back the other way. That was more the issue, Yvette. Anyway, Sam goes on. They may make things worse. Policing is a sort of confidence trick. There aren't enough officers to attend simultaneous protests across the country for an extended period, as I said before. And if they further disperse arrivals, they'll have more sites to watch. So at the moment, the plan is to get through the summer, move to plan B. If the protests succeed in forcing the government to close a single hotel, they'll erupt everywhere. The goal is not to make that concession. May you live in interesting times, quoting the old Chinese quote. So, very, very interesting. I love this little reply. This is classic Twitter. AI Sam says the last significant changes were a result of Brexit, which you supported and still support. Sam, I worked on the Remain campaign. My apologies. I get that stuff all the time on Twitter. Just today, I had someone attacking me for being a boomer, people calling me a traitor, that apparently I believed in all this stuff that I didn't believe in, and citing Enoch Powell, who I've done a stream about, and I'm halfway through his biography. But I put up a post that said that no one would have expected this collapse when I was growing up. I meant the normal person you chatted to could never have imagined in the 80s or 90s that we'd be looking at the third worldification of Britain. But some people took it very literally, that there were no political parties ever warning about this. But of course, there were people like Powell and others warning about things like this. But it was never a mainstream opinion. So I got distracted looking at the comments. So very good thread from Sam there. I mean, I largely agree with most of that, or all of it probably. And one point he made that was very, very key at the end there, the goal is not to make that concession. So they can't close a single hotel. And that I thought was very, very interesting, because this is what is being demanded now by councillors. So if I share this, you'll see that people are starting to demand councillors are starting to demand, and police commissioners are starting to demand that these are shut down. So even on Sky News here, Epping Council demands government immediately close Asylum Hotel as Home Office works to restore order, so-called. And I also took one from the Independent because I thought, hey, let's take a lefty, I was going to say paper, it's not even a paper anymore, is it? A lefty website, Independent. Home Office working to restore order as councils call for Asylum Hotel to shut. Now, what's interesting, I'll kind of go in reverse order of how they've got it, because down here, they talk about the guy who's requested this, which is Roger Hurst, and he is the Essex Police Fire and Crime Commissioner. Police Fire and Crime Commissioner, yeah, I guess that's how it works. I guess in Epping, you've got to stick all those things together. And he said that I'm requesting a meeting to discuss the ongoing use of hotels in the Epping Forest district of Essex and elsewhere in the country to accommodate newly arrived asylum seekers. Specifically, I'm seeking to highlight the unsuitability of the Bell Hotel in Epping for this purpose and request that its use be reviewed. The presence of asylum seeker accommodation in this district is clearly creating community tension. These large-scale protests are disrupting local life and placing an unwelcome burden on Essex police resources. So there we go. Very clearly, it's Roger Hurst, who's local to the area, saying, well, we can't have this. This is causing havoc in my area. And so this is quite interesting because this guy, I think he's a conservative, but he's not some far-right so-called guy, is he? And so Dame Angela Eagle, Minister for Border Security and Asylum, who are these people, said, we are working to close hotels, restore order, and put fairness and value for money at the heart of our asylum system. The government is making those necessary decisions to protect the taxpayer and uphold the integrity of our borders. What does that mean? They're not doing anything. They're not going to close the hotel is what that means, or they're desperately trying to avoid it, right? Because if they do, as Sam says, it's kind of over. They've shown that they can be pushed into that, I suppose pushed into it in a good way. They're bowing to pressure, very correct and necessary pressure, and they should actually do it. But I think he's right that if they caved, that would be a big problem for them. And someone else who pointed this out was Councillor George Finch, who is the 19-year-old. He's a 19-year-old Reform councillor, and I'm going to try and bring up his post now. Let me just do that. So it's quite interesting. You've got these young Reform councillors just going for it. He says, yesterday I wrote to urge the Home Secretary and the Chief Constable of Warwickshire Police to disclose the immigration status of the two men charged in connection with the bleep of a 12-year-old girl in Nuneaton on the 22nd of July. Read my letter in full. So we've got the local police commissioner in Essex over the Epping issue, which was, of course, the Ethiopian, wasn't it, who assaulted someone. And now we've got the Warwickshire one, which was the Afghans with the 12-year-old girl. Horrific. And I'll just go to his letter now, seamlessly. There may be a better way to do this. Tech geeks, let me know. So George Finch here, 19-year-old Reform councillor. I don't know if you can read that, but I'll read it anyway. He says, I'm writing to you concerning the dreadful incident of the 12-year-old girl who was bleeped in Nuneaton. I must be able to get that bigger. On July 22nd. As you will know, the alleged perpetrator is an asylum seeker who currently lives in a HMO. He goes on, this has caused unease locally as residents have very easily been able to join the dots together and have concluded that this man is an asylum seeker. And he goes on to basically just say that his duty as leader of Warwickshire County Council is to protect all his residents and maintain social order. And he speaks about the cover-up by the police. And he says, having my ear to the ground locally, it's clear that there is much appetite for protests to take place across the county. Let me be clear, I do not want to see protests taking place outside migrant hotels and HMOs in Warwickshire, nor do I want to see any form of violent disorder. Our police have much more important things to deal with. They do not need the mass disruption to local policing, which would follow from the commencement of any protests. In the interest of transparency with the public and in the interest of ensuring public order on Warwickshire streets, I urge both the Home Secretary and the Chief of Warwickshire Police to release the currently omitted details of, and any names the criminals or potential alleged criminals, immigration status. I also demand that the Home Office close and remove all HMOs in operation in Warwickshire. So very, very similar. He asks for the same thing, but they can't possibly back down and do this, right? Because of the chaos that would bring, and the fact that when I say chaos, I don't mean chaos. I really mean the climb down that would mean for the powers that be and the elites and the Home Office. Speaking of the Home Office, I do have another piece here from the Telegraph about good old Rob Jenrick. So it's not just the councils. So we will talk about the councils because I think that's significant. But first, I have to take my sponsored sip of Diet Coke because me and Trump drink Diet Coke. Someone's saying I should use OBS. It crashed my old Mac. With my brand new Mac, it might work, but I don't want to dare risk it again. So we're on StreamYard for now. But yeah, any tech geeks want to help me out, I'll pay you a small amount. So firstly, on these councillors writing, I think that is fascinating because one thing is reform councillors writing to the government, which is kind of to be expected, but that's interesting because you could end up with pockets of reform-only areas. You move to a reform area, you live in this kind of quasi-autonomous zone. Remember that zone in Seattle in America where it's like, this is our zone now, you can't come across. Was it called Chad or something bizarre? We could get that. You're in a reform area now, a big sign goes up, and you once you move into that area, it's only Thatcherites. You've got to believe in free market economics. You get your free pair of binoculars to look at the boats. And it could be reform areas that are completely different and actually demand that these get shut down. And then you're living in a kind of weird, atomized, what would be the word, kind of secessionist kind of Britain or England. It's going to happen at some point anyway. Basically, native Brits are going to end up going to rural enclaves and trying to self-police with vigilantes. I can see it all happening in the future. It's kind of starting to happen. But imagine you go to a reform area and it's just much better run, and the council has managed to get these hotels shut down. That is very, very possible. Of course, it may not be like that because reform, may not be that great. We don't know. On the national level, they're questionable. On the local level, we have to wait and see. But the other thing that can happen is, I think that guy in Epping was a police commissioner, and he was a Conservative, I think. But that's quite significant that he's writing to the Home Office. But maybe you'll even get Labour councillors writing to the Home Office and saying, "Look, this is unsustainable in my area." I could see that happening, and that's interesting as well because then you have a clash between the local and the national, and I just think that's inevitable. There's already tensions, obviously, between the local and the national at any time, but I just think, when it comes to migrant hotels, the fact you've got people writing to the government saying you need to shut these down, and the government's just going, "Oh, we will maintain order," and it's like, you're not, though. It makes them look incredibly ropey, incredibly weak, incredibly banana republic. So I think that's quite an interesting kind of development. But it's not just us they're spying on. So incredibly, they actually tried to silence Robert Jenrick after small boat terror claims. There's that word again. So the Home Office tried to silence Robert Jenrick after he said terror suspects had arrived in Britain on small boats. In an article for the Telegraph last year, Mr. Jenrick, former immigration minister, claimed that individuals linked to IS had waltzed right in to Britain across the Channel. It can now be revealed that a fortnight later, the Home Office's most senior civil servant reprimanded him over the disclosure. Sir Matthew Rycroft wrote to Mr. Jenrick to tell him the information should not have been made public, and warned him against any further disclosure of sensitive information from his time in government. So we know Jenrick's become a bit of a rebel, but he's actually getting written to by the Home Office, told to shut up. Critics said the move showed the government were trying to suppress concerns about the security implications of mass migration. Yeah, that's definitely possible. The Home Office neither confirmed nor denied the veracity of Mr. Jenrick's claims, and it's understood to have had concerns that they could undermine national security. So Sir Matthew argued that the former immigration minister was bound by rules that prohibit the disclosure of sensitive information, including the Ministerial Code and the Official Secrets Act. So they sort of said, "Oh, look, it's all official. You can't do that. Privileged, blah, blah, blah." Still, I thought it was interesting that they even told Jenrick to shut up about it. So talk about getting desperate. Very, very strange times. Thank you very much, Shadow Tamer, for the super chat. And there's no comments. I don't even have to read anything. Amazing. Thanks so much for the support. So in this new format, which, has got pros and cons. So I thought that was very interesting as well. And I hadn't planned what I was going to say about these. I just thought I'd respond to them live, and just thought I'd piece it together for you in case you hadn't seen all this. So you've essentially got, well, we know about the migrant situation. Then you've got the government spying on us, a narco tyranny, much easier to attack the innocent citizens for noticing. That's why I put in my picture, the real crime is noticing, than actually solve the problem. But we are seeing splits because people on a local level are trying to do the right thing and tackle it. And then the government say, no, shut up. We're going to solve it. Because if they do give in, as Sam Ashworth-Hayes very perceptively said, it's really over for them because they've given in to that pressure. But you see, to me, if they don't, they become illegitimate anyway because they've got these people coming in at night doing horrific things to our children. So how can that be sustainable either? So I don't see how they can win. They either carry on with this untenable situation, or they back down and, as Sam says, lose the illusion of authority and the illusion of being in control. They kind of did that, though, didn't they, over the grooming gangs? Just thinking out loud, they kind of did do that. They said, no, this has all been looked into. Shut up, little people. Jess Phillips knows what she's doing. It's all sorted. It's all under control. We've got the local thing in Oldham. Then, no, they caved to pressure. And they commissioned that report, and the report was actually, even from a kind of insider, was too bad, and they had to do something. So let's see. I mean, someone's saying they'll never give in. Yes, but if they don't, they'll be voted out. And whether reform or a real alternative, I talk about endlessly on this channel, but they will be voted out if they carry on like this. But if they don't carry, if they cave, they'll also lose all legitimacy. Very, very interesting. On a fun level, I thought I'd share this from our friend Ant Middleton, who's been frankly putting up some wild tweets. I mean, this is a dude who used to go in and first man in, clear a room. So he's he's a pretty tough dude. And he's been going off, though. I've been surprised. I mean, he is a sort of former mainstream TV guy. He's been absolutely going off on his tweets, saying that, encouraging the protesters, but he even had one that said you shouldn't have a high-level job in government if you're first, second, or third generation immigrant. He's absolutely going off. He said something to Narinda Kaur that's like, you're not from here or something. I mean, Ant is just like, he's just like, I don't care anymore. I'm just going full. I mean, imagine how right-wing he's from the secret boat service, that special boat service. Sorry. You've got the SAS and the SBS, who are, some say, even better, even tougher, because they're dealing with horrible water all the time. Imagine how right-wing these guys are behind the scenes. And he's just going, tell you what, I'm just going to have it out. Actually, one of our previous guests, Richard Thompson, who's joined Advance, trained with Ant. So that's quite interesting. Anyway, so Ant says, who owns the hotel in Canary Wharf? Name, please. And I just wrote, whoever it is, he'll be bricking it when Ant shows up. And imagine Ant shows up. Yeah, who is it? You that's running the hotels? Yeah. I'm not gonna act out what would happen because I'll probably get banned. But I thought it was worth going to this to show who he actually is, and I'm sure you've seen as well. But let's just discuss it. It's this guy Alex Langsom who has this hotel empire. How big is that showing up? It's not very big, is it? Oh well. He has this hotel empire, crowned the worst in the UK, and his the Cheshire Asylum King worth 400 million, making a fortune from migrant hotels. And if you kind of look at his face, maybe I can go smaller and make him bigger. If you look at his face here, he's just exactly who you'd cast in the movie as the kind of callous, fat, greedy, land baron, landlord, slumlord, or whatever he is. And Ant would come in. I think we could imagine how the movie scene goes. He's in the penthouse. Ant comes in. I probably can't say the rest without getting banned, but we can imagine that movie scene. Just the kind of exactly who you'd think was doing all this. And if you are doing this, it is a disgrace, and you do need to be shamed, I think. And I've seen people shaming the police officers who wanted to cover up the Warwickshire thing. And I was going to retweet it, and I thought, if they're the wrong people, I'll go to prison. But Pete Lloyd shared it. And I think we've got to make the social cost of these things much higher than the social reward, because the reward has been there for a long time to cover up these things. And there's been no discouragement, no disincentive for that. It's all been incentives. Like, yeah, we'll cover it up, because if you reveal this stuff about the grooming gangs, you're racist. So there's a massive reason not to, but there's no reason to reveal it. There's no reward. So the reward should be for releasing the information. In the case of the Warwickshire Afghan migrants, the reward should be for releasing information about grooming gangs, and the reward should be for not housing asylum seekers, which only John Mappin's the only guy I've heard of that's actually doing that. So yeah, our rewards and incentives are completely gone. We have no moral foundation. We have no moral, moral infrastructure, if you like. And of course we don't, because why would we? We've not kept it up, and we've not done anything to keep it up. We don't have a Christian culture anymore. Whether you're a Christian or not, I have to agree it was a lot better. So that's where we are. Just a little segment on what's happening there with the migrant situation. And I'll just read the chats. Oh, they're both nothing to read. They're just donations. Oh, thank you very much, Jamie and Shadow Tamer. Pretty cool name. And that is pretty much it, I think. 35 minutes. If anyone else wants to do a chat, I can read it, or I don't think I can go through all of them. They're just too many, but I thought I'd just try this little stream. It was quite interesting. It was quite good. The only problem is you've got to bring up all the stuff, and you really need a producer for that. You need to be Dan Wootton with a elite team, a lot of cash. I need someone clicking buttons and doing stuff like that, and I can just show up and be the talent. Do you get on with Cressida? Worth getting on a chat? Cressida's all right. She's all right. I don't really see anyone from headliners except, of course, well, I don't know why I said that. That's not true. So I'm friends with Simon, of course, Leo, Paul, obviously. They're my main friends. And do I chat to anyone else? Obviously, there's one person who we all would never speak to. So, yeah, all right. Thanks, everyone. I don't know. I can't go through all these chats now. It's a new format. Hope it was all right. Quite a serious topic. We'll do some other topics coming up. We've got the streams coming up. I'm going to do some more. Actually, I haven't decided what to do, but I'll definitely do some more with Simon Roberts, because that went down very well. Trying to get the headliners guys on here, actually, but Leo first said, oh, my internet signal's not good enough, my internet connection, which is amazing given that he does YouTube and does so well at it. But he's moved now, so he says it's going to be good soon. Because mine's like 600 and something, but I've got no friends who have good internet, and no friends at all. But the ones I do have terrible internet. Someone suggested doing it at Lotus Eat as like a headliners at Lotus Eat. Lots of people in the chat were saying that. But then Simon was like, well, I wouldn't travel. So I'm like, hang on, Simon wouldn't travel. Leo's got no internet. I'm trying my best, guys. And we already do a show with Paul. So, what are you going to do? I'm doing my best, guys. I think a headliner stream would be cool. I don't know how frequent it would be. Me, Leo, Simon, Paul interchanging. I think that would be great. But, getting these people, they're just not dedicated enough to content. It should be all content all the time. You have friends, Nick. Get Lewis on soon. He's streaming daily. See, the problem is I can't read the free chats because then there's no value in the paid chats. So I actually can't read the free chats because then the paid people are going, what did I pay for? You see the problem. You do see the problem. We're your friends, Nick. That's true. You're my real friends, T. You're my only friends. Yeah, that's a sad way to end. All right. Unless someone else wants to say anything, I'll probably go. It can't go on 4 hours 38 like the other one did. That's the problem with these videos. They can't really just ramble on at the end, can they? I should probably just end them. But I don't have the... It's always bad when people just go really abruptly, isn't it? You always feel that's not that pleasant. Anyway, take it easy, says Watermelon. Take it easy. Good stream. Thank you very much. I'll do more of this kind of thing, and I'll try new formats, and I'll start to hire a crack team. But for now, go and watch my chat with Harrison Pitt if you haven't watched it. I released it at 5 p.m. on YouTube because that seems to be when people are on, and it's really good. If you want the whole one, go to nickdixon.net, of course, as always, for all my stuff, which I haven't even plugged, incredibly. But nickdixon.net is where it's at. Let me just bring up nickdixon.net because this is how we survive now that we've lost the old GB. It's going to be, I'm doing Lotus Eaters, but it's going to be mainly my Substack, which is doing very well. So if you like this kind of thing, go to nickdixon.net and you can see I've got the Harrison Pitt interview here, which I highly recommend. And the whole thing is half an hour longer than the one on YouTube. And I put all my full versions of everything on there, full versions of the podcast with Paul and guest episodes. And we do a whole extra podcast with Paul that's really good. He's been unavailable lately, which is annoying, but we've got 20 episodes of it up on there that I don't put anywhere else. And it's like £5 a month. Actually, it's 50. If you get 50 quid a year, what's that? we'll do the math right now. That's 4.166666. So it's £4.17 a month if you sign up. So I think that's pretty reasonable. So anyway, had to get the old plug in there at the end, but start with the free version if you want. It's on YouTube, of my interview with Harrison Pitt, which is very, very good. He's very smart cookie. And thank you so much again to Jamie and Shadow Tamer for the chats. And I'll see. Oh, when is the Go Mental podcast out? Yes, it's just Paul's not available. Basically, I now do Fridays at Lotus Eaters. So therefore, we used to do it on Friday. So it is my fault in that sense. But it's tricky because Paul is just less available. Because he's got so much going on as well, and he's always doing normal blooming jobs instead of, dedicating his life to content, which is what I think you should do. And I've just completely dedicated. I'm just a content now, essentially. So anyway, I'm just trying to bring up for some reason I'm trying to bring up my interview with Harrison on YouTube. There it is. So check that out and check out nickdixon.net. And we'll try and get Paul back for an episode of Go Mental, which is one we do only on Substack. And there's loads of stuff on nickdixon.net. And we'll see you all very soon. Thank you very much and goodbye.